Hello there, and welcome to the FIWARE Smart Fest 2022. And it's day one, so we got plenty of exciting and very meaningful, impactful sessions coming up next, and as well as tomorrow. So I'm here live from the FIWARE Foundation live studios in Berlin, and I want to introduce you to our next session, which will address a topic it's very close to my heart, and I think to everybody else, which is water. Water is not only important for our well-being, it's also very important for the economy. And it's also a topic that FIWARE Foundation takes a very close interest in. As a matter of fact, late last year, water became FIWARE's fifth domain focus area. And without further ado, to talk to you all about the challenges and opportunities for the water sector within the context of data spaces, I will welcome to the stage my very close good friend here at FIWARE Foundation, Fernando Lopez, who will walk you through everything that you want to know about water and data spaces. Fernando, take it away.
Thanks, Val, for the nice introduction to the session. Again, my name is Fernando Lopez. I am representing at the moment the new Mission Support Committee regarding the smart water that was created at the second half of the last year. And I wanted to introduce the session in which we make a specific roundtable in order to discuss about the specific topics about the water sector and the acceleration of the data space in order to adopt this let's say concept inside the water sector in order to see what is the challenge that we see, the opportunities and the future activities in the European level. First of all, I am in order to introduce the speakers of this roundtable. It's a pleasure to talk with them because they are very specialized person working in the water sector. We can start with Dr. Frank Legol. This is the CEO from the EGM. This is an innovative SME focused on integration of and validation of emerging technologies. He's also involved in the XC SIM in the definition and the specification of the NGSILD, and also one of the, let's say, core member of the FIWARE community. Also, we have with us Aitor Corchero. He's a senior researcher and research and development project manager in the Applied Artificial Intelligence Research and Development Group in EuroCAT Technology Center, which a lot of activities in the European projects, also related to the ICT for Water cluster, any other initiative like AIoT and BDBA, mainly focus on the artificial intelligence and semantic web. We also have Anastasia Mouzidou. I'm not sure if I pronounce very well. He's a researcher in SERF, also with high involvement in water sector in several European projects, currently working in the Aqua 3S and also participating in the Digital Water 2020 initiative, like the others representative in the session today. And I continue with Davide Storelli. He's a senior researcher as well in engineering, also related to the water sector. He's working in the Open Public Service Innovation Unit in engineering, and also he's aligned or he's participating in the Water Europe initiative in order to investigate or in order to to develop new services and new functionalities regarding the contribution of the ICT in the water sector. Let's move to the next slide. My intention is to have a brief overview of the water sector and why we need to use the data space in this water sector. The first, this slide, the intention is to define what is the manifest of this data space in order to see what is the relevant topics. And so the first one is the digitalization is the key enabler for the water sector towards more resilient and sustainable water services and data-driven decisions. This is obvious. The second point that has to be taken into account is that the current situation of the water utilities or the water sector is that they are starting to making use of data-intensive technologies, which means that they started to adopt new paradigms in order to manage data information from the different sensors or environments. Of course, setting clear and fair rules to access and reuse data is a key concept in order to facilitate the interoperability and also to facilitate the exchange of data. Good data management and data sharing will increase, of course, the development of new innovative products and services in this sector. And last but not least, the increase of the efficient and sustainability of many water sectors is something that is fast forward related to the previous topics. Taking that into account, there is a set of challenges when we are talking about the data space adoption in the water sector. The first one is that there is a clear perception of a risk when we are talking about data sharing, no? And there is not also a perception of confidentiality leakage, mainly because the different data users or final users, the water utilities, they are not trusted in the security aspect of the critical infrastructures. We need to keep in mind that when we are talking about the water sector, this is a specific sector in which any security issue is very, very important, no? Because we are talking about water, no? It's not talking about cars at the end. So if there is some poison in the water, is the people are drinking this poison, no? So it's very, very critical, this aspect. Of course, the second point is the poor quality of data, because utilities are not fully confident about what is the information that the other company provide to me, no? So there is a topics that have to be managed. It's related to probably related to the data models or any other kind of data exchange solution in order to facilitate this quality. Another point is not clear. There is no clear business model associated to the data space, which means that there is no data available to innovate, and of course it means that there is a delay in this adoption of the data space. The fragmentation and the conservative attitude of the water utilities is another challenge, mainly related to the problem of not trusted insecurity aspect and poor quality data. But this is something that with the use of the big data and the artificial intelligence that we started to see in the different utilities, this is something that could be resolved in a short time. And last but not least, the data flows, no? This is a little bit medium term, but when we are talking about the reduction of the ICT cost, we obviously we need to talk about the cloud, and then we need to talk about how can we manage the data flows between the different clouds infrastructure. Given that, there is a set of strategies that was defined by the European level. The first one is that the regulation will empower the users to stay in control of the data. Those users, we are talking about water utilities, in order to manage the concept of data sovereignty over this data. There is a adoption or an intention to adopt a legislative measurement of data governance, access, and reuse in order that this kind of water information can be in an easy way exchanged between the different data utilities or water utilities. We should provide a mechanism to facilitate the reuse of certain public sector data that cannot be made available as open data or for obvious reasons. This is something that is regarding the data sharing, how we can trust or how we can manage the identity access to those data. This is a key concept of the data space. We need to ensure the data intermediaries that could be a trustworthy organizer of data sharing. This is a key concept related to the trusted exchange of data. We need to make data available for the benefits of society. This, of course, is when we are talking about the open information regarding the water sector. This is a good opportunity to be translated to the society in order to increase the quality of life, but also to facilitate the creation of new services, new innovative services with this data. And last but not least, the water is a keystone in the overall structure of the economy. So we need to facilitate the data sharing between or across different sectors and borders when they have to use specifically the water information. Okay, this is a brief introduction of the section. The next point is that we have a set of open questions that I wanted to translate to our speakers in order that they can provide us an overview of what is the challenge, what is the opportunities, and what is the focus of the water when we are talking about the adoption of the data space there. The first question is why data space might be relevant for the water sector. Here we have, for example, Anastasia can provide some overview on that.
Okay, hello everybody. I hope that you can hear me.
Yes.
So the water sector involves the exchange and sharing of data in order to get data from SCADA systems, for example, from routers, etc. So this is a key, let's say, a key aspect in the water sector. At the same time, a key aspect in the data space is the sharing of the data, the part that they're not stored centrally somewhere, and that the partners that are sharing the data should, let's say, keep the same high standards and rules that refer to storage and sharing their data. So we can see here that the same aspect is behind, the water sector and data spaces. Because the sharing of the data is so important in data spaces, cybersecurity has to play a significant role. As it needs, let's say, to ensure that the availability of data, the integrity of data, the confidentiality of data is always maintained. So it seems it seems to be a very close link between the data space and the water sector.
Okay, thanks. This is a good answer to the question because at the moment when we are talking about the data spaces here and the relevant to the water sector, it's also important to mention the concept of semantic information there. So I don't know if Aitor can provide some overview on this specific topic.
Yes, thank you very much for letting me here to stay with all of you. And of course, I'm fully agree with the Natasha aspect on the importance of data spaces in water, but also we would like to highlight the importance also not only at water sector level, but also the possibilities to share data and to integrate and to interrelate data with different sectors. For example, a good example is the interrelation between water and energy and water distribution that by the combination of data, we can take decisions or decision-making, operational, political procedures to enabling, for example, an efficient use of water while, for example, use efficiently the energy to pump this water through a city, or, for example, to establish a policy decision-making just to make procedures to to elaborate win-win strategies between the nexus interlink between water, energy, climate, land use, and all the economics behind that. Also, another important aspect is, as Natasha said, the security, privacy, but also we need to ensure data ownership in all the data sets in order to empower the users, the water companies to share data and to facilitate the elaboration of other digital tools, services, or even artificial intelligence tools behind this data. And making open the data could bring new innovation, newer companies, and at the end, as Fernando said in the manifesto, establish new business models for water sector. Sorry, Fernando.
Fernando, you are mute.
Yeah.
Okay, now better. So I was saying that I'm very happy with the answer from Aitor, because he mentioned that the efficient is one of the key concepts there, because the next question is going to the how to reduce the ICT cost infrastructure when we are talking about data space and the adoption in the water sector. So maybe Frank, like SME, you can provide an overview on that.
Yes, hi Fernando. Yes, I'm not sure that my answer is going to be water specific, but when we speak about ICT infrastructure, we have to think about the application, we have to think about the storage, we have to think about processing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to reduce the cost of each of them, I would say for the application, obviously we are in the FIWARE community, so easy answer is, okay, go to open application, do not reinvent the wheel, try to avoid being locked, either invest too much in your application, reuse what others are doing. I think it's quite important, thinking about cost, financial costs, but also more environmental costs. So reuse is quite important. Reuse of storage. Do not multiply the storage. We can share the data among us, and I think that's the purpose also of the data spaces, to avoid to have too many redundancies and having two actors in the same lake doing the same kind of measurements when they can share data. And obviously, what we do in FIWARE on models and so on to exchange this data is quite useful for that. And then on processing, also the same. Try to avoid going cloud only. Put processing where it needs to be processed, and in some cases, this apply at least for the water sector. Edge processing is quite useful. And I was discussing recently with a city close to where I live, where they had to handle big storms, and for them, resiliency or handling resiliencies during crisis through edge processing and this kind of things is also an asset. So all these together, open solutions, data sharing through open standards, as well as adapted edge cloud infrastructure can help.
So good points. Thanks, Frank. Because when we are talking about the reuse, storage, open data sharing, and data sharing, and so on and so forth, it's important also to answer the following question. No? It's about the why do I need to share data with others? No, and important point as well is that when we are talking about sharing data, is how we can be sure that we are trusted the information there. No, this is something that probably Natasha or Anastasia can provide an overview from the security aspect.
So the why is because there's a close communication interconnection, as it was also already mentioned by Aitor and Frank before, between the different domains. So I mean, the water sector is not independent. It's closely related to other critical infrastructures such as the energy. So there is need by default to be able to share data. So there's, let's say, a common reference. Also, there's a common architecture that is used so that we can, let's say, get data and this transaction is done as easily as possible, and the communication and the handling and even, I mean, the understanding of the data is both ways the same in both parties. So I think this answers the why. If you could,
Yeah, but I have a good question
yes.
now, because when we are talking about the sharing data, also we are talking about because we observe this challenge in the recurrent question to the water utilities is about the security. No, when
Yes.
they need to share, or they need to, or some way to communicate or disseminate the information about the quality of the data. And even worse thing, this is if there is some kind of external intervention in the water management. So the security is a key aspect, even more key aspect than other sectors, let's say. No, so if you can provide some kind of overview about why is so important the security in the water sector.
Okay, first of all, it's important because the water itself as a common good is something that is not that is invaluable. So there are many attacks there, and if an attack happens, it's actually it can create a lot of issues. So that's why the data are very important. At the same time, it should be noted that the water industry designed without any security as a primary concern. So initially, the security was not part of the design. So when actually this attack started happening, the gap between the security and the current situation started to appear. So this the fact that the attack could endanger public health and environment is, let's say, why we should, let's say, not why is this cybersecurity is the top priority in the water sector.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that this is also related to the topics that the water sector. Currently, we see that the water sector is not fully digitalized sector, no?
Yes, it's not digital, but I mean, this should not stop the digitalization of water sector.
Precisely. Thanks for the answer. The next question is about how can we resolve the data management gaps? No? We have identified different gaps there, like the trustworthy, the data sharing, the data interchange. So, Davide, maybe you can provide some overview from engineering point of
Yes.
view about these topics.
Yes, sure. Hello, everybody. Well, within the general principles of data spaces, the solutions need to consider specific sector approaches to effectively address the data management gaps. So it is necessary to make data management practices and resources in the water sector accessible, affordable, as we saw before, secure, fair, and easy to use. Improving the usability of data and the interoperability of data-intensive processes. So it is important to lower the entry barrier to data spaces. And it would be of great help to make available extendable and open ecosystem for data management. So composed of different tools and data resources that can be used independently or in combination. Well, to do that, we could build upon data space components and assets already available from FIWARE, from IDSA, for example. To ensure full compatibility with the European data spaces, and then provide complementary tools and resources to enable effective data management practices. Populating such tool ecosystem would require tools and resources such as data discovery and collection tools, tools for data preparation, so managing quality of data, that is so important, integrity, validation of data, anomaly detection, for example, data anonymization, but also data provenance, stuff like synthetic data generation and so on. So the message from my side is to lower the entry barrier by making available open tools and resources for data management that are specialized for the water sector.
Okay, thanks. Because this is also related to the next question, in which we wanted to identify what is the challenges to implement the data space for water. I don't know, I thought you can provide some answer to the question.
Yeah, of course. First of all, and I also with David, and following up the previous question, is just the first thing is just data privacy and ownership of the data that is related with data provenance and ensuring a common framework just to motivate the industries and water companies to create or to publish their data sets that do not compromise the infrastructure, and also to create a trustworthy framework just to share data and to share data explaining tools or visualization tools or innovations around water. Another challenge that is highlighted or should be highlighted is the governance framework for sharing data. And I'm not talking about Europe, that most of the countries follow up as same directives and regulations, but when we have to share data across the Atlantic or with other companies in other parts of the world, it could be difficult from the different directives and regulations, and they impede to share not only data but also the knowledge behind this data. That could help, for example, for understanding what are the water management rules or operational strategies or policy making strategies from other climatic regions or for other kind of urban modeling or whatever. And for me, I think that is these 2 points more the more critical ones, just to as a challenge is to behind the data spaces and the sharing of data around water sector.
Okay, thank you very much, Aitor, for your answer. The next question is a little bit relevant for me. Is how can FIWARE can support the overcoming the challenge? So maybe Frank is a good speaker to answer the question.
Yes, maybe I can start. Okay, so we covered several of the facts already. It was mentioned already in the previous session. What's important is to have data which follows the FAIR principles, that has to be findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable. So these are really the basis of which all the FIWARE ecosystem is built. And what's important is, it was said that water is not one teeny domain. Huh? When we look at water, you have to look at the whole life cycle, starting from the source. It starts from the rains, the groundwater, the surface water, and then you have to abstract the water to water treatment and to distribute it and optimize this distribution. Then optimize the consumption of the water, treat it again. So this means that you have to collect the wastewater. So it's really related, connected to the territory and to other aspects of food, of energy, and so on. So it's really cross-domain, and that's really where you need to have all these specifications on which FIWARE builds. And it's not again only water, but it's also territories and so on. So all the actors, we have all the sessions previously in the day we were listening are quite connected at the end to the water. We have plants in water, we have territories, and so on and so on. So yes, FIWARE is really meant for supporting these water data spaces.
Okay, this is also, I also provide, of course, the creation of this smart water domain committee. This is another point in which FIWARE community can help on the support of overcoming challenge in order to introduce the data space into the water sector and to to provide this answer to the data sharing problems regarding the definition of the corresponding data models, the open solution, because the FIWARE technology is an open source technology, open APIs, because we are talking about the specification of NGSI LD, XC NGSI LD, in which Fran is also working on, so on and so forth. So this is a good point to mention. Thanks, Frank. And last but not least, the last question is how does Europe work for an open global digital economy and society regarding the adoption of this kind of let's say topics in the water sector? So probably Davide can provide some overview of the different initiatives in Europe.
Yes, I can mention that there are a couple of initiatives that I would like to mention. Those initiatives are carried on by Water Europe and by the Big Data Value Association. The first one is the Digital Water Systems and Interoperability Working Group within Water Europe. And the scope of this working group is to contribute to the creation of a water data space in the context of the European data strategy by contributing to the relevant initiatives around data sharing and standardization from a water data perspective. So the recent activities of this working group allowed gathering some very relevant information from the water sector with respect to its expectation about digital transformation. While at the top barrier to adoption of the European data strategy is viewed as a technical challenge related to data standards, the second most barrier is about culture. So we must have technical standards, as we saw before, in place to make data more accessible, but also support a cultural transformation. And the second initiative is the Task Force 10 and the data sharing spaces of BDVA. This task force has a more broad focus, of course, which goes beyond the water sector, providing a horizontal viewpoint with respect to data spaces. But it will also deal with the vertical sectors being supported by various vertical subgroups. What I would like to briefly mention from its last position paper is a set of recommendations for an effective transition toward data spaces in the next 10 years, especially those that represent a precondition for all the others and that aim at achieving convergence of existing European and national initiatives. And it is worth to say that such convergence is slowly happening at international level. See, for example, the Data Space Business Alliance, launched by FIWARE, by BDVA, GaiaX, and IDSA to accelerate business transformation in the data economy.
Okay, thank you very much, Davide, for the point. It's I don't want to close here because before mention also the ICT for water cluster in which Aitor is also working, and Frank, maybe Aitor, can you provide some short description of this cluster?
Yeah. Well, just first thing, initially, the ICT4 water cluster is just a cluster of different European projects and companies behind these projects in order to promote digital tools around the water sector. Frank is one of the co-chairs of the data sharing working group, and myself, I am the chair of the interoperability and standardization. Between both, we will try just to empower and to promote mechanisms, paradigms aligned with the Water Europe, aligned with European directives, and also in the wave of using reference architectures as a FIWARE and the open APIs behind that in order to go beyond current data sharing platforms to promote this data sharing across sectors, and also to establish the basis to create a common framework for new business model around data, around the ICT tools, that it is, well, the future for all the sectors, including water.
Okay, thank you, Aitor. So just to summarize the roundtable, we see that it's very important the trustworthy of the information and to define the specific data models. We put in the chat the Smart Data Models initiative, in which we are working in the definition of different water domain data models. It is very important when we are talking about the interoperability of the platforms to have an open APIs and open source components in order to facilitate the integration of and interoperability of those platforms. It is clear that the standardization activities of the water community has to be taken into account when we are talking about this interoperability of the services, in order that semantically speaking, the information can be understood for each of the stakeholders in the community. Security aspect is a key concept. It's not a blocking point in the adoption of the ICT technologies in the water sector, but it's a key component in terms of accessing the data and provide security control of the infrastructure that we are talking about. One last but not least, when we are talking about water is a cross domain that is related to different other vertical sector like industry, agriculture, citizens, life cycle, and so on and so forth. So this is very important domain that we need to cover, and the adoption of the data space is, I think, it's a cornerstone in the shortcoming years in the adoption of the technologies in Europe. Last but not least, I wanted to mention this FIWARE and Water Congress that will be, let's say, it's coming into this year, but it's moved to June due to the COVID situation, and is expected to have a presentation there together with Atos about the smart energy and smart water, and we will there in order to disseminate the activities of the community in that aspect. Last but not least, you have the opportunity to follow us in the different channels. Also, you can, if you wanted to participate in the recently created mission support committee about the water, feel free to contact us by email. I put my email in the chat, fernando.lopez@fiware.org. Or you can also try to follow the newsletter or the marketplace or any other kind of communication channel that we have in the FIWARE community. So I wanted to finish to say thank you very much for our speakers. They provide a nice overview of the water sector and the relationship between the data space and the interoperability of the services in the water sector and the semantically definition of the data. And hopefully you will be, you have a very interesting session with a lot of answer to open questions. Thank you very much for attending the meeting, and we will close here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.